Chains of Honor by Valkyra Blackheart. Prologue. Sydney sat at the table where they had left her, her small feet dangling off the wooden chair. The coven was not the dark dungeon she had imagined. The walls were plain timber, a fire crackling in a hearth, and shelves stacked with jars of mushrooms and herbs, vials of glimmering fluid, and stones etched with runes in different colours. It was homely, yet to her, every item was wicked. She poked the bowl in front of her. The stew had gone lukewarm. Her little chest ached in worry. Where was Father? Was he hurt? He had ranged deeper into Greenclaw Swamp, and this time Sydney and her sister were allowed to come, but only if they promised to follow all of Father's commands. Should I tell you to hide? You hide. Should I tell you to run? You run, he had said, and they eagerly nodded their agreement. But out of nowhere, fierce warrior women ambushed them, and they were dragged off to the witches' coven. Father was taken someplace else, while Sydney and her sister were put in the witches' private quarters and served supper. The witch's ugly face was terrifying, and Sydney kicked her in the leg. But the witch only laughed and led her sister away, leaving Sydney alone with the stew. It was probably human meat, she thought, and pushed it away with disgust. Sydney clenched her fists, not knowing what to do. Had she been older, she could have killed the witch, and together, her sister and she could have rescued Father. Oh, how she wished he was here. Then suddenly, the door banged open, and there he was. Father! Blood ran from his brow, sword red, his face twisted in fury. She jumped in fright, her eyes swelling in tears at the sight. Sydney, quickly, hide! When she comes, you must slip out. Find your sister, then run. Run home and never look back. Her lips quivered. But Father... Listen. He gripped her hand and brought her to the corner of the room. You swore to obey. By Banor, you swore. Now, swear again. You find your sister and run. Tears blurred her vision, and then she nodded, almost choking on the words. I swear. The walls shook as a tall warrior woman stormed in, spear in hand. Sydney hid behind the cabinet, her heart hammering. Spear clashed with blade, sending sparks and splinters flying. Father struck, blade cutting the spear in half before he kicked the warrior onto her back. His blade rose for the killing blow. No! The air flared as the other door burst open, the witch's wand already raised. A wave of fire erupted from its tip, the magic crashing into Father's side. He staggered, but rose quickly again, snarling in defiance. Sydney caught her breath. She wanted to stay, to scream, to throw herself into his arms. But she had promised in Banor's name. You had to do the things you promise in Banor's name. She slipped out through the door the witch had entered, the hag too busy weaving another spell to notice. In the next room, Sydney found her sister under the table, curled up and weeping. Come on, Sydney yelled and grabbed her hand. We have got to get out of here. And they ran, the screams and clash of battle fading behind them with every step. By Banor, no witch shall know peace while I draw breath. Part 1. Belby. The gulls shrieked overhead and swooped low to peck at scraps off the deck. The smell of salt and fish filled the air, as it always did, but Belby hardly noticed today. He just grinned, nearly dropping the crate when she told him what it was. "Fireworks?" he asked in amazement, his eyes wide as dinner plates. The woman nodded. "But remember, it is a surprise. The captain deserves something special for all he has done, yes?" She was right, he thought. Thanks to the captain, Belby and the other orphans had roof against the rain, warm blankets and pillows, their very own cot, and the luxury of never having to go to sleep hungry again. "Fireworks are fragile and dangerous if handled carelessly," she continued. "Make sure you store them safe at the far end of the Guildhall, away from guests and valuables. We do not want to burn down the captain's library, do we?" "Yes, no. Yes, I will be careful. Promise." The woman smiled through thin lips that did not reach her eyes. Belby had never seen fireworks before, only heard about them. He wondered if they were anything like magic. Though, come to think of it, he had never seen magic either. Was fireworks magic? He did not know, but he held a whole crate of fireworks now, pressed tight against his chest. The banquet was sure to be an event he would never forget. He shifted his grip of the crate and tried to imagine it. Yesterday, the young Lady Blackheart told a story about dragons beneath a faraway island called Fibula, and how one had escaped and breathed fire across the sky. Perhaps fireworks are the same. He was not invited to dine with the Blackhearts, only help the captain with serving, but surely he would get to see them blazing off into the night, like dragons. He caught the woman scanning him thoroughly. There was something about her face, familiar somehow. Stern lines, nose sharp, eyes that sparkle like ember. For a heartbeat, he thought of the mysterious resident he had seen once in Summerhaven. "You better be off, boy, before the first guests arrive," she said, voice low yet heavy with authority. He recognized the Tyan dialect. It sounded so bossy, like they know better. But the thought of seeing actual fireworks made him feel giddy. "Yes, lady, at once!" Belby never asked why she, strong as she looked, could not have carried the crate to the Guildhall herself, nor how she knew he lived at Summerhaven. If he did, he would have gone straight to the captain. Part 2. Merwin. Summerhaven glowed with light from sconces and coal basins that cast shadows across a patchwork of stone and timber. The long tables seemed ready to collapse under the weight of all the food. Roasted wings of dragon and wyvern, golden-browned salmon fillets, honey-glazed potatoes with smoked pike, buttered cave turnips in Zeoan sauce, mushroom pies, lime tarts, strawberries, pineapple slices, and mountains of brigadeiros. Then an abundance of rosebud beer, Summerhaven rum, and Venorian spiced wine. It seemed almost obscene, and Merwin Blackheart could not help comparing the exuberance to her family's humble beginnings, when life had been simpler. Sure, her youngest may have grown accustomed to the comfort of being wealthy, maybe too much so, but she knew her eldest remembered life in Greenshaw, and tonight was her night, so she would try not to worry. Celebration was in the air. They had decorated the hall with luxurious furniture, fabrics, and art. The cutlery was especially crafted for the event by Carlinian expert artisans, paired with intricately carved elven bowls and Venorian plates pressed with the banquet's date, place, and occasion. The golden threads of the massive tapestry displaying the House of Blackheart coat of arms flashed in the firelight. This wedding feast would be nothing short of enchanted. The drums and pipes were nearly drowned out by the buzz of men and women sitting shoulder to shoulder on the benches. Alanui Institute had promised their most gifted bards and jesters, and they certainly did not disappoint. At first, anxiety had struck Merwin hard. The knot just below her ribs urged her to run away to the safety in her private chambers. This cloistered arrangement had been a necessity most her life, yet now she could not regret the risk of being here, not when she saw the expressions on all her family and friends. Dharma and her betrothed were granted the honor normally reserved for the captain himself. The dais high above them all, so that each guest might approach with gifts and blessings. One by one, they approached the happy couple, but none had brought as much merriment as Theoden. Laughter boomed throughout the tables when he, in an uncharacteristic jest, recited a poem that might have better been sung exclusively in the company of men. Still, the charm was embraced by all. Perhaps I have just been secluded too long, she thought. Then the Blackheart Herald thumped his staff twice on the wooden floor and announced the arrival of a young boy, one of the late arrivals from far away. It had taken so long to write all the invitations and make sure they arrived well in advance of the banquet, giving them enough time to prepare for the voyage. She was glad to see him, because as he approached, she recognized him not as a young boy, but an elf, though short for his kind. He cradled something in his arms, and a smile crept up when she saw the thick tome, no doubt written by the sublime wordsmith himself. "My dearest friend," he addressed the bride, voice full of familial affection. "From Greenshaw to the frosty north in Senja, you were a little lone wolf then. How quickly you have grown to a warrior of strength, beauty, and grace. I wish you and your spiritual match the favored tale of living happily ever after that you so well deserve." He laid the tome on the table for gifts. "May these tales inspire you both while writing your own story, together as one." The hall erupted in cheers and applause as Dharma and Akishiro returned the honor with a graceful reply. The two had been offered many such courtesies since the beginning of the banquet, but none carried as much warmth, familiarity as this one. The elf bowed again before joining the guests at the tables. He found a seat among his brothers and sisters of the Red Rose. Navi and Joe Ain poured his cup so full it threatened to spill, while Munch clapped him jovially on the back, including him in their conversation with a smirk. With a quiet sigh of relief, Merwin tugged the edge of her hood to adjust it. Her family had asked about her unusual attire, but had accepted her excuses without fuss. It would seem the disguise held, as many a guest had thrown curious glances her way throughout the evening, wondering at the stranger so honorably placed among the bride's family. She shifted more comfortably beside Valen Blackheart, allowing her thoughts to drift.
So many years had passed that it felt like a lifetime ago.
He had been a gallant young man, scion of an impoverished off-branch to an ancient Tibian dynasty. Having to build his own fortune, he had ventured on a quest for a lost relic in Green Claw Swamp, and their paths crossed at a lonely meadow. She knew the place like the back of her hand and guided him through the treacherous bog. In gratitude, he had offered his protection, and eventually they settled down in Greenshaw. After all this time, he had not changed. His eyes shone with the same passion when he joined the altruistic captain Chiori of Summerhaven. Some say his shelter ill-suited the House of Blackheart, its corridors drafty, stonework riddled with cracks and holes that cried out for a mason's care. At least the roof no longer leaked, she thought. But its continued dilapidation was no accident. The captain had chosen it with care, preferring a house that appeared the least threatening to the oppressive forces of Liberty Bay. Beneath this roof, his protection extended to those unable to defend themselves, who in turn often repaid him with useful secrets from Traders Point and the harbour. It was an ambition Merwin had great sympathy for. Her own family had come from a community where shared burdens were necessary for survival. And though she was not low-born herself, she knew hardship well enough. In one night, that safety net was ripped away, and life itself became a struggle. But thanks to Valen, things improved drastically. The thumps of the herald's staff echoed in the hall again, striking thrice to signal the high station of the newly arrived guest. Merwin looked up and gaped at the figure standing before the dais. It was the biggest plume she had ever seen on a hat. A half mantle rested dashingly on the plumed man's left shoulder, cut short, its hem falling no longer than to the waist. Intricate silver thread patterns gleamed on his white doublet. Across his chest ran a deep crimson sash in satin, drawn at the hip, where a slender ceremonial sword with a golden hilt hung lazily. Behold the leader Rye-Ain of Red Rose, legatus of the Sitting Council and the Sword of Fibula, cried the herald. Rye-Ain removed his tricorn hat with a flamboyant wave, setting his right-heeled boot forward and bent the other knee low. With a flourish of his free hand, he sank into a gracious bow before Dama and Akashiro, the great plume nearly brushing the floor. May the love that bind your souls also forge a bond between Fibula and Abdendriel, he declared, and rose with a practiced smile. With a snap of his fingers, a novicium darted forwards and placed his gift on the table, a crystal wand, humming gently with ancient magic. In the old world, it was a much sought-after artifact. Valen rose at once, arms spread open in welcome. Rye-Ain, you came! The two had met at a Red Rose meeting in the exotic city of Svargrond a few months past. To her great regret, Merwin had been unable to accompany him, as all who had returned spoke of a bond that would last a lifetime. Excitement swelled in the hall as her husband embraced the legatus. Before the cheer faded, another figure entered the hall, and dread ran up Merwin's spine. The governor of Edron, Daniel Steelsoul. It was nothing but a bad omen. Panic shrank Merwin in her seat. Below the man's stern expression, she knew, lurked the vicious will of a Grand Master, the leader of the Knights of Banor's blood. Their reputation alone was enough to drive fiend and friend alike into hiding. Her heartbeat quickened. The letter of invitation she had sent had in truth been no more than formality. He had not left his duties on Edron in decades, and she was sure he would have sent an emissary today rather than coming by himself. What had stirred him, I wonder? Are they on to me? If her past were revealed, the Blackheart's reputation would be ruined forever. It suddenly got hard to breathe. Too many faces, too much noise. She had to get out, now, back to her chamber. As Daniels turned to address the herald, Merwin pulled the hood lower over her face and rose, pushing past the people at her table. Dionysa and Osiris frowned, but they knew not to ask. However, she caught Akashiro observing her. She forced a weary smile, hoping he would think she was just tired. He gave her a hesitant nod. Valen would be saddened by her absence, but he was used to entertaining guests without her by this point. At the doorway, Merwin collided with a boy, one of Chiori's orphans. He stammered an apology. "Out of my way," she muttered under her breath and left him there. For Chiori, she would have stayed, told him it was all right, but there was no time for manners now. To safety, now. Better safe than sorry, and she vanished into the dimly lit corridors of Summerhaven.